Open up your books to page 23. We will try and go through it quickly. Aunt Marge has arrived. We already know, I'm going to assume we already know, about the deal that Harry made with Vernon regarding the Hogsmeade permission slip. And Aunt Marge sees Harry and says, "So, still here, are you?" "Yes." "Don't you say yes in that ungrateful tone. It's damn good of Vernon and Petunia to keep you. Wouldn't have done it myself." One little thing in that quotation that I just read, that passage I just read, did you notice anything you haven't seen before? Swearing. It's the first time J.K. Rowling does it in the books. Okay? Part of it, I think, is because she's assuming her audience is getting older. Okay? As the books progress, we'll see more. Second page. They're still talking, and not second page, page 25. They're still talking. A few days have gone by, and Aunt Marge is saying, one day, I think this is at lunch, "You mustn't blame yourself for the way the boys turned out, Vernon. If there's something rotten on the inside, there's nothing anyone can do about it." Okay, now we saw with Chamber of Secrets. What does Hagrid say about the Malfoys?
They're rotten.
Rotten to the core. Okay. On the inside. Bad blood. All right? But what do we see by the time you get to the end of Chamber of Secrets? What does Rowling talk about? How does she resolve that notion? Are people rotten to the core? What do Harry and Dumbledore talk about at the end of the book, Chamber of Secrets? Anybody remember? Dumbledore, Harry tells Dumbledore that the Sorting Hat thought he should be in Slytherin. And Dumbledore says, "But you were put in Gryffindor. Can you tell me why?" And Harry's like, "Because you chose Gryffindor. Because you didn't want to be in Slytherin." And Harry's like, "Okay. Yeah, but Tom Riddle and I are both Parseltongues." And Dumbledore tells him that, some of his powers, Voldemort's powers, were transferred to Harry the night that he was given the killing curse. The night he got the scar. All right? And Dumbledore tells him in that end of year debriefing session that we see throughout books 1 through 5 and kind of part of book 6. He tells Harry, "It is our choices, Harry, far more than our abilities, that show who we truly are." Okay? It's our choices, not our abilities. Abilities are what? Talents are what? Innate. They're what you're born with. Okay? You're born with certain physical abilities. Can you change them through practice? If you can't jump, no matter how much practice you do, you will never be able to stuff a basketball. I mean, yeah, maybe if you use a trampoline or some jumping device or something. But other than that, okay, if you have slow twitch muscle fibers, if you have a predominance of slow twitch muscle fibers, you'll never be a sprinter. Similarly, if you have a predominance of fast twitch muscle fibers, you'll never be a good marathoner. Genetics are against you in that case. But that says nothing about choices. In other words, people can choose to be good or bad. Has nothing to do with blood, which Rowling is going to show us in the course of the novels. Okay? Especially in the one, in front of us. So, if there's something rotten on the inside, there's nothing anyone can do about it. If someone is born with bad blood in them, they will be evil, she is suggesting. Jump to the end of Book 7. And I mean the very end of Book 7. Who does Harry nod to in the epilogue? Draco Malfoy. Is Draco Malfoy evil? No. He has a wrong belief system. Does he change? Yes. Does Narcissa Malfoy change? Yes. Why? What causes her to ask Harry, is Draco still alive? In Book 7. Love. It's love. It's not love for Harry. She could give a rat's you-know-what for Harry. But she loves her son. And she will do anything for him. What does the anything include? When she tells Voldemort that Harry's dead, what is she doing to Voldemort? Lying. She's betraying him. Okay? Why? Because she loves her son, and she wants her son to live. Okay? Harry tries to concentrate on his food while he hears this. And Aunt Marge reaches for her glass of wine. It's one of the basic rules of breeding. You see it all the time with dogs. If there's something wrong with the bitch, there'll be something wrong with the pup. Okay, so Harry's, like I said, he's not the brightest bulb in the box, but he's not dim either. So what does he realize? She just called his mother a bitch. Okay? And at that moment, the wine glass she's holding explodes. What do the rest of the Dursley family assume? Harry? But notice it wasn't Harry. She goes, not to worry, must have squeezed it too hard. Did the same thing at Colonel Fubster's the other day. Okay, so Aunt Marge is in the habit of breaking wine glasses with her hands. Wine glasses are pretty strong. Okay. Harry goes outside. He's breathing deeply. He thinks that he's the one responsible. So what happens? The next 3 days go by without event. And it's now the last day. If Harry can get through this day, he gets his Hogsmeade permission slip signed, and everything will be fine. And so now it's dinner. The very last evening. And Uncle Vernon, after they've had several bottles of wine, now who's drinking the wine? Vernon, Petunia, Marge. Several bottles. What does that mean? It's not two, because two's a couple. It might be three, but I would consider three to be a few. So it's probably four or more. For 3 adults, can I tempt you, Marge? When he brings out the brandy. Aunt Marge had already had quite a lot of wine. Her huge face was very red. Just a small one, then. A little bit more than that. That is, Vernon pulls, like a finger's depth of brandy in her cup, and she goes, little bit more then, and she tips the underside of the bottle to get more out. And a bit more, that's the ticket, so she probably has 2 or 3 fingers of brandy. Brandy's usually about 80 proof, 40% alcohol by volume. It's strong. she says, smacking her lips and putting the empty brandy glass back down. She chugged it. Excellent, Nosh Petunia. And she burps richly. Notice everything about Petunia. Bad manners. She smacks her lips.
You mean Marge?
Yeah, sorry, Marge. Smacks her lips, says loudly, pardon me, but I do like to see a healthy-sized boy. She looks at Dudley. You'll be a proper-sized man. Proper-sized? I think it is in book 5, we're told. He's the size of a small killer whale. A baby killer whale. Okay? So what's going to be the proper size? Grotesquely fat? Now this one here. And here he's thinking of the handbook that Hermione got him for his birthday. This one's got a mean runty look about him. You get that with dogs. And back to the dog. I had Colonel Fubster drown one last year. Ratty little thing it was. Weak. Underbred. Underbred. Bad genes is what that means. Okay? Marge. What is Marge short for?
Margaret.
Short for Margaret. What kind of dogs does she have? English Bulldogs. So Marge plus English Bulldogs. What British Prime Minister was synonymous with the English Bulldog? Winston Churchill. Okay. But a later English Prime Minister, conservative Prime Minister, was often equated with Winston Churchill. Margaret Thatcher. Okay. J.K. Rowling is on the left side of the political spectrum. A lot of people think that her portrayal of Aunt Marge is really her taking a pot shot at Margaret Thatcher. Because Margaret Thatcher was not a great supporter of unwed mothers, like J.K. Rowling was when she began writing her book. And Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister at the time. Okay? Just a little tidbit background there. So she talks about Harry being a runt. It all comes down to blood. As I was saying the other day, bad blood will out. Sounds just like Hagrid. Now, I'm saying nothing against your family, Petunia, but your sister was a bad egg. They turn up in the best families, and she ran off with a wastrel, and here's the result. The result. To his face, she calls Harry the result. Like a lab experiment. Okay? This Potter, he never told me what he did. And Uncle Vernon and Petunia realize they're in deep doo-doo here. That this will not end well. He didn't work. Unemployed. As I expected. A no-account, good-for-nothing, lazy scrounger. In other words, somebody sucking up welfare. He was not, Harry says. Vernon, being the bright man that he is, more brandy? Yeah, it's just what she needs. Be even more uninhibited. You, boy, go to bed. No, Vernon, no. Go on, boy. Proud of your parents, are you? Go and get themselves killed in a car crash? Drunk, I expect? Who's drunk? I mean, several bottles of wine? And he gives her more brandy? Notice, he empties the bottle. They didn't die in a car crash. They died in a car crash, you nasty little liar. You're an insolent, ungrateful little... And she blows up. Or inflates. Harry leaves. He catches the night bus, which we're going to skip. He sees the Grim. He meets Ernie and Stan. They take him to Diagon Alley, and he runs into Cornelius Fudge. Okay? And Fudge says, why don't we go in for a nightcap to the Leaky Cauldron? In page 45, Harry's like, hang on, what about my punishment? Fudge is like, what? Harry, I broke the law. Decree for the restriction of underage wizardry. Oh, my dear boy, we're not going to punish you for a little thing like that. Harry's like, what the? Last year, I got a letter threatening me expulsion for a charm I didn't do. Well, circumstances change, Harry. We have to take into account in the present climate. Well, what's the present climate? Sirius Black has escaped from Azkaban. Harry doesn't know Sirius Black from Adam and Eve. Okay? He doesn't understand what it means. But what does that mean? Circumstances change. Does the law change in our society? No. There is what's called prosecutorial discretion. That is, a district attorney can decide whether or not to prosecute someone for breaking a law, but it doesn't mean the law changes. Okay? Harry's like, why were you waiting for me? So he goes on to the Leaky Cauldron. Hedwig's already there. And he essentially has 2 weeks before term to enjoy Diagon Alley. Free ice cream from Florian Fortescue's Ice Cream Parlor. Sorry, I'll get the word right. He looks at the firebolt. Okay. He runs into Ron, Hermione, all them. I'm going to skip a bunch. We find out Scabbers just isn't doing so well. And then Hermione buys a big, ugly, yellow cat that looks like it's been run into by a truck. And page 61, Ron asks Mr. Weasley, what happens if we catch Sirius Black? And Mr. Weasley's like, don't be silly, Ron. Okay. We see Percy. We see the HB signs on the car. Page 66. Harry overhears Mr. and Mrs. Weasley talking about Sirius Black. And the next morning he tells Mr. Weasley, because Mr. Weasley is going to tell him, don't do anything stupid. Okay? Page 73. Mr. Weasley says, bottom of 72, you must be very scared. Harry goes, well, not really. I'm not trying to be a hero, but seriously, Sirius Black can't be worse than Voldemort, can he? And, you know, and I took on the 16-year-old Tom Riddle. Mr. Weasley says, I knew you were made of stronger stuff, but wow. Okay. Promise me you won't go looking. Harry's like, don't worry, I won't. Page 75. Harry tells Ron and Hermione, talks about the argument, and Hermione says, oh, Harry, you have to be really, really careful. Don't go looking for trouble, Harry. Harry, I don't go looking for trouble. It finds me. Well, yes and no. He does sometimes go looking for it. Okay. So they get up to school. I take that back. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle come in, and then leave when they realize there's a professor sleeping in there. And the lights go out. Page 83. Standing in the doorway, illuminated by the shivering flames in Lupin's hand, was a cloaked figure that towered to the ceiling. Its face was completely hidden beneath its hood. Harry's eyes darted downward, and he saw a hand protruding. And then Harry, his eyes rolled out. Okay? What does Neville do after this? Anybody remember? He apparently goes up and down the train and tells people, Harry passed out. Why do you do that? Think about it for a moment. Did Neville pass out? Nope. Potter passed out when I didn't pass out. This is a bit of self-elevation for Neville, okay? What was that thing? Lupin talks about it being a Dementor, okay? And then Malfoy, they see Malfoy 7, it says, you fainted? You fainted? McGonagall talks about the Dementor, and what do we hear from Madame Pomfrey? Finally, a defense against the dark arts teacher who knows his remedies. Because what does Lupin give them all? Chocolate. Just gotta love Lupin. Okay? Why chocolate?
Endorphins.
Chocolate releases endorphins in the brain. Endorphins are the hormones that make you feel good. Okay? Like if you've ever been a runner. If you're a runner and you're going out, you're doing a run, it's a long run, you'll reach a point at which your body just kind of, steps aside and you just feel good. That's because the brain has started releasing the happy drugs. To do what? To numb the rest of the body. Okay? It'll also come to a point where it stops releasing them and the brain tells the body, stop. And it might happen at mile 8, it might happen at mile 24. It might happen after you finish the marathon, if you're running a marathon. But it'll happen at some point and the body just shuts down. J.K. Rowling has talked about why she uses chocolate, and it's because psychiatrists will actually to people who are suffering from depression, okay, because of the endorphin release. And she's talked about the Dementors as being symbolic of depression. Okay, think about this word for a minute. De-ment-or. Look at this part first. What is a mentor?
Teacher.
If you have a mentor is a teacher. Okay? What is the mentor supposed to do? Guide you, direct you, build you up, make you better than you were before, or more knowledgeable than you were before. But the or simply means an agent of. What's this? Thought, mind. Thought, mind. Dementia is when you lose your mind. A dementor doesn't mean losing your mind. The D is to this. The opposite. Help you, aid you, guide you, direct you. So it's one who will lead you astray. One who will de-mind you. That is, take away your thoughts, take away your mind, take away your consciousness. Okay? This will be important for later on in this novel. So Dumbledore comes in, he talks to mentors, talks about don't go off using any secret passages, etc. And we have the chapter Talons and Tea Leaves where, Harry goes up and we meet Sybil Trelawney. And we find out Sybil Trelawney is the niece, I think, great niece, of a woman named Cassandra, I can never remember it, and if it's spelled in here. I think it's Blavatsky. It's either Blavatsky or Blavatsky. The reason this is important is because there is a real woman in the early part of the 20th century whose name was the other one of these. So if it's this in the novel, then her real name was this. If it's this in the novel, her real name was this. Okay? Who was a quote-unquote seer. She was a complete and total fraud. This woman was. Wrote books, had all kinds of famous and powerful people following her and all this kind of stuff. Okay? Why is that significant? Well, what is Sybil? A seer and a complete and total fraud. After all, we're going to hear from McGonagall. Sybil Trelawney been predicting every year since she arrived at Hogwarts the death of a student, and how many have died? None. Okay. What else does she predict? Well, book 5, all kinds of stuff. You know, because Jane Umbridge puts her on the spot and says, predict something. Okay. And she offers something, all right? She's a complete and total. Now, notice this. What branch of magic does she teach? Divin. Branches of magic that we see in the novels, which one is the only one that has a real world counterpart? Nation. Can you really go down, Memorial Boulevard and find a building, a store that sells you transfiguration items? No. Arithmancy? Nope. But you can go read tarot cards. You can go have your tea leaves read, which are all aspects. So the one branch of real world magic that shows up in the novels is the one that J.K. Rowling is completely, totally bogus. Even in the book 6, Dumbledore is going to tell Harry, I was ready to cancel, to get rid of teaching divination entirely. So why didn't he? Why does he keep Trelawney there? She made a right prediction, so you better have her in close contact. It's for her own protection, really. Okay? See, this book, she does another one. It's even more reason to keep her nearby. All right? So what does Harry see in his tea leaves? The Grim. What does Hermione see? A bunch of tea, whatever leaves, I guess. Ground up tea in the bottom of the bowl. Okay. So we're going to skip a bunch. And they go on to McGonagall, page 109. Hermione says, we've been to divination, and McGonagall, first thing, okay. So who's dying this year? Harry, me. She goes, well, if it were not for the fact that I never speak ill of my colleagues, which she just did by even saying that. Okay. So she talks about divination, and she goes on and tells Harry, unless he dies, he has to do all of his homework. She's just cold. So they go off to Hagrid's class, and Hagrid introduces them to what? Hippogriffs. Okay? And we see, obviously, Harry can fly hippogriffs very well, Buckbeak. And because Harry can fly Buckbeak well, what does Malfoy assume?
He can do it too.
What else does Malfoy assume?
Way too much.
What do you mean? How does Malfoy behave towards Buckbeak?
He's just cocky. He's like, oh,
Disrespectful, cocky, arrogant, condescending.
everything hypocrites hate.
Hippogriffs hate, so what does Buckbeak do?
That's his arm open.
Attacks him, gives him a little nick. Okay, there's blood. I do.
Overreact.
Oh, my arm, and I'm dying, all this kind. And writes to Daddy. Okay, so Hagrid thinks he's going to be fired. And we go on to chapter 7, the Boggart in the Wardrobe. Defense against the dark arts. Okay. First they have to go to potions and, deal with Snape. And Then they go to Lupin's class. And he teaches them about Boggarts. Snape comes in to give Lupin something. And he's going to have Longbottom, Neville, help him with a demonstration. Neville goes red, Snape's like, don't do this. So he says, it's a Boggart. What's a Boggart? And Hermione explains it's a shapeshifter. J.K. Rowling does, by the way. Boggarts are real in kind of Celtic mythological belief. People in Scotland still think they exist. They help explain, you missing things that you've lost. They move them, etc. So what do? A Boggart takes on your worst image. That is the thing you fear the most. That's what the Boggart looks like. So how do you get rid of it? You do the ridiculous charm. Okay. So Lupin says, page 134, talks about the ridiculous charm. He says, okay, Neville, first thing, what's the thing that frightened you the most? Snape. Okay. Now, you live with your grandma. Uh-huh. So, he goes, yeah, but I don't want the Boggart to be my grandmother either. Because she's pretty scary when you think about her. He says, no, you misunderstood. What kind of clothes does your grandmother wear? Same hat, tall one, stuffed vulture on top. Probably with a piece of rotting flesh hanging from, long dress, normally a fox fur scarf. Handbag? Yeah, big red one. Okay. Picture those clothes. You see them? Yeah, okay. Now when the Boggart comes out, I want you to see Professor Snape with those clothes on. Okay. All kinds of laughter. So the Boggart comes out, and what does he see? Professor Snape with his grandmother's, Neville's grandmother's, clothing. And Snape stumbled. He's wearing a long, lace-trimmed dress, a towering hat, topped with a moth-eaten vulture, swinging a huge crimson bag. Laughter. The Boggart pauses. Lupin sends Parvati forward. Snape rounds on her. Now it's a blood-stained, bandaged mummy, sightless. And now the mummy starts to unravel. That would be pretty funny. Okay? And its head falls off. Seamus goes in. Now it's a banshee. Why? Because Seamus is Irish. Okay? And suddenly, the banshee clutches her throat. Why? Because she can scream. That'd be a horrible thing for a banshee. And then we have Dean Thomas and Ron, and it's a spider that loses its legs. And then it comes to Harry, and Lupin stops it. Okay? 5 each to Hermione, and he gives points to people. Harry, but I didn't do anything. Yeah, but you and Hermione answered the questions correctly. Harry's like, get out of here. That's a dodge if ever I heard one. Okay? So we get to the flight of the fat lady. Oliver Wood has had it. He's in his last year at Hogwarts. They've never won the Quidditch Cup. Okay? He's pumping up the team, page 144. We've got 3 superb chasers, 3 women, Alicia Spinnet, Angelina Johnson, Katie Hill. 2 unbeatable beaters, Fred and George, or Gred and Forge, as I've heard them called. A spell keeper, that's Oliver, and Harry. Okay? We're going to skip a bunch again. Try to find where to pick up. Page 154. Harry goes to see Lupin. And Harry asks, 155. Why didn't you let me fight it? That is, why didn't you let me fight the Boggart? Thought that was obvious. Why? I didn't want Lord Voldemort appearing in the castle. Here he goes. No. Lupin. I was wrong, I guess. Harry, I didn't think of Voldemort. That is, I wouldn't have seen Voldemort. I remember those Dementors. Oh, I'm impressed, Harry. Suggest what you fear most of all is fear. So you've been thinking I didn't believe you capable of fighting the Boggart. Harry, well, yeah. Okay, Snape comes in bringing the potion. They talk a little bit more. Harry leaves. Notice they don't talk about what Harry suggested about the Dementors and not thinking Harry could fight them. So Ron and Hermione come back from Hogsmeade with all the loot. And they make their way back up to the Gryffindor Tower and they find the fat lady's been slashed and stuff. So Dumbledore sends, and page 163, we find out it was Sirius Black, and they're wondering how to get in. How to get past. We still don't know a lot about Sirius Black. Okay? Snape has some ideas, page 165. Dumbledore won't listen to them. He talks to McGonagall. He says, I know Sirius Black's after me. And she says, okay, she understands. Quidditch match comes up. And page 170. Lupin is sick, so Snape takes over his class. Snape doesn't think Lupin is doing a very good job of teaching it. So he asks them about werewolves, page 171. And Hermione says, but we're not supposed to do werewolves yet. We're supposed to start with Hinky Punks. Okay. So he says, no, I want you to turn to page 394, start reading, and you're going to turn in, what is it, a 3-foot-long essay, I think it is, on werewolves. And they're to do it without magic. No, they're to do that for the next class period. Okay, the match takes off. I'm just trying to see what all I can skip. We have Cedric Diggory, Mr. Pretty Boy. Harry looks down, and what does he see? Page 179. Bottom 178, top of 179. 100 Dementors down on the pitch, looking up at Harry, and he hears. He didn't hear this before. Okay. Not Harry, please, not Harry. Stand aside, you silly girl, stand aside now. Not Harry, please, no, take me, kill me instead. Not Harry, please, have mercy, have mercy. And he passes out. Okay, Harry wakes up. We find out Dumbledore was extremely angry. Harry asks about his broom, page 182. And Hermione has that beautiful little bag she has that she'll use a lot in book 7. And she tips it up, and out come what are essentially matchsticks and toothpicks. And that's all that remains of Harry's Nimbus 2000. Okay. They go back to Lupin's class, page 185. And the students are all griping and complaining about Snape's essay. 2 rolls of parchment. Lupin says, don't worry, you don't have to do the essay. Okay. And then everybody leaves. And Harry starts talking to Lupin, bottom of 186 and 187, about the Whomping Willow and about Dementors. And Lupin says, I don't think any of us have seen Professor Dumbledore that angry. Harry, why do they affect me like that? The Dementors affect you worse than the others because there are horrors in your past that the others don't have. Well, what are the horrors in Harry's past that others don't have? Voldemort. What else? Seeing his mother die. He was a baby. He doesn't remember it, but he did see it. He did witness it. He didn't see his father die. Okay? Dementors are among the foulest creatures that walk this earth. They infest the darkest, filthiest places. They glory in decay. In despair, they drain peace, hope, and happiness out of the air around them. Even muggles feel their presence. Book 5. Though they can't see them, get too near a Dementor and every good feeling, every happy memory will be sucked out of you. If it can, the Dementor will feed on you long enough to reduce you to something like itself, soulless and evil. Harry, I can hear Voldemort murdering my mom. Harry, why'd they come to the match? They're hungry. They haven't fed. Okay, Harry, Azkaban must be terrible. Fortress is set on a tiny island way out to sea. But Sirius Black escaped. Yes, he did. Nobody knows how. But you made that Dementor on the train back off. Well, there are defenses. What defenses? Teach me. Maybe in the holidays. Okay? So, George and Fred come to Harry before the next Hogsmeade visit, before Christmas, and they give him something. Page 191. As they call it, it's the secret of our success. It's a wrench giving it to you, but we decided last night your needs greater than ours. What do they mean, your needs greater than ours? What's Harry's need? What does the Marauders Map do? Say that again?
It tells you where people are.
Tells you where people are.
The secret passageways.
Shows you all the secret passageways in and out of Hogwarts. Okay? Why is their need not as great as Harry's? They know all the secret passageways. They don't know which ones are guarded or not, but they know where they are. Okay? Why does Harry have a greater need? There's a murderer after him. And what do they see? Harry is cooped up in the castle. They think Harry has a need to escape, to get out. What are they not thinking of? There's a murderer after him. And all the Dementors around the castle, for what reason? To keep Harry safe. The Dementors aren't there for Fred and George, or Ron, or Hermione, or Malfoy, or any other student. They're there for one reason, to keep Harry safe. Okay? So, they say, we snitched this from Filch, and they show him how it works. They touch the parchment. I solemnly swear I'm up to no good. Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs, purveyors of aids to magical mischief makers, are proud to present the Marauders Map. What is a marauder? A raider, a pirate, a thief. Okay, this is the Thieves Map. The Thieves Map. If you want to go filch stuff, I use that word intentionally, from the kitchen, this will help. Because it will show you where Filch is and where everybody else is. Okay? Notice who it shows. It shows where Peeves the poltergeist is. It shows where the ghosts are. It shows where everybody is. Okay? And they trace the trail into Hogsmeade. So they show Harry how to wipe it clean. And Harry's standing there. He's at the entrance to a secret passage, and he's thinking, what did Mr. Weasley say? Never trust anything that can think for itself if you can't see where it keeps its brains. This is some serious magic here. He should be thinking, maybe I shouldn't do this. And he thinks that for maybe a second, and he's off. Okay? He makes his way to Honeyduke's. He comes up behind Ron and Hermione at the Three Broomsticks, or they go to the Three Broomsticks. And what happens? They're in there, and in pop who?
Fudge.
In comes Fudge, McGonagall, Hagrid, and Flitwick. Would you really ever think of these four, being drinking buddies?
Hagrid kind of joins them there, though.
Yeah. Hagrid will pull up a booth anywhere. If it's drink, he'll be there. Okay. Who else shows up and stays with them? Madame Rosmerta. Okay. Just to give you an idea of how she picks her names, Rosmerta is the name of a Celtic goddess of hospitality. She's essentially the goddess of barmaids. Okay. There are actually some stone depictions of her with big tankards, like the St. Pauli girl, if you're familiar with St. Pauli beer. So they come in. Notice what Hagrid's drinking. 4 pints of mulled mead. Okay? That's a lot of hooch. And what do we hear? Harry's sitting with Ron and Hermione. He's hidden behind a Christmas tree. And they start talking about Sirius Black and the Potters. And Sirius Black tells them about the Fidelius charm. Okay. And says, page 204, that Sirius Black and Potter were like brothers. Inseparable. Fudge, of course they were. Potter trusted Black beyond all his other friends. Nothing changed when they left school. Black was best man when James married Lily. Godfather to Harry. Godfather? What does that mean, to be named Godfather? Exactly. They take over responsibility of the child in the event of the parent's death. But the responsibility is just raising. Godfather also, specifically, has religious connotations. Okay? In order to be a godfather in the Anglican Church, which is what this would be in, you must be a Christian. Sirius Black is a wizard. How the blank can he be a Christian? James and Lily is a witch and wizard, or wizard and witch. Get the gender right. This is talking about a religious ceremony, a religious marriage. Okay? This is going to be important because when we get to book 7. So, Fudge says, not many people are aware that the Potters knew you-know-who was after them. Dumbledore, who of course was working tirelessly against you-know-who, had a number of useful spies. One of them tipped him off. He alerted James and Lily at once. Advised them to go into hiding. Used the Fidelius charm. Okay, and Madame Rosmerta. Well, how does that work? An immensely complex spell. The information is hidden inside the chosen person or secret keeper and is henceforth impossible to find, unless, of course, the secret keeper chooses to divulge it. In other words, an imperious charm would not work. It has to be given of their own free will. Okay? So Black was the Potter's secret keeper. Naturally. James Potter told Dumbledore that Black would die rather than tell where they were. Black was planning to go into hiding himself. But Dumbledore remains worried. He offered to be the secret keeper himself. He suspected, he was sure that somebody close to the Potters was giving information. But Potter insisted on keeping Black. He did. Madame Rosemary betrayed them. He did indeed. Okay? Hagrid, filthy, stinking turncoat. Shh, the whole place probably shakes when Hagrid does it. I met him. I must have been the last to see him before he killed all them people. It was me who rescued Harry from Lily and James's houses after. Just got him out of the ruins, poor little thing, with a great slash across his forehead, and his parents dead. And Sirius Black turns up on that flying motorbike he used to. Never occurred to me what he was doing there. I didn't know he'd been Lily and James's secret keeper. Thought he just heard the news of you-know-who's attack and came to see what he could do. White and shaken he was. You know what I did? I comforted the murdering traitor. Hagrid, please. How was I to know he was upset about Lily and James? It was who he cared about. And then he says, give Harry to me, Hagrid. I'm his godfather. I'll look after him. Okay? And then they talk about little Peter Pettigrew, Madame Rosmerida. That fat little boy who's always tagging around. Hero worshipped Black and Potter, McGonagall says. Never quite in their league, talent-wise. But, okay, Pettigrew cornered Black. They say he was sobbing. And, all that was found on the finger. Okay. Fudge goes on, says, I was a junior minister in the Department of Magical Catastrophes at the time, one of the first on the scene after Black murdered all those people. Crater in the middle of the street, few fragments, finger left of Pettigrew. Okay. And then Fudge says, Black's not mad. I wish he was. He says, last time I was at Azkaban, I asked for the paper. It was unnerving. Said he missed doing the crossword. Well, why? Madame Rosmerta asks. Okay. And the question isn't answered. And they all, Hermione and Ron turn to look at Harry, and Harry's just, Hermione, Harry? Harry. He gets back to school. Page 213. Harry, you look terrible. Ron, it's the first day of holidays, remember? Hermione, you don't look so well, Harry. Harry, I'm fine. You must be really upset about what we heard yesterday, but don't go do anything stupid. Like what? Oh, I don't know, like going down the trap door after the sorcerer, Go after Black? You won't, will you, Harry? Ron, because Black's not worth dying for. You know what I hear and see every time a Dementor gets close? I can hear my mom screaming and pleading with Voldemort. Okay. Why does he say that? Don't tell me Black's not worth it. What's Harry thinking?
Like it's Black's fault that his mom.
Yeah, it's Black's fault that he's hearing his mom's voice. What else is he thinking? I'm going to kill this son of a witch. Okay? Revenge. That's what he's thinking. So what do you say, says Ron? You want to kill Black or something? Hermione, top of 215. Don't be silly. Harry doesn't tell anyone, do you, Harry? Malfoy knows. Remember what he said to me in Potions? If it was me, I'd hunt him down myself. I'd want revenge. Your boy's advice instead of ours. Notice, it's the guy with bad faith, wrong belief, who wants revenge. Harry, Malfoy's dad must have told him. He was right in Voldemort's inner circle. Ron, say you know who. So obviously the Malfoys knew Black was working for Voldemort. I always imagine Harry, when he says Voldemort there, he looks right at Ron and says it really clearly. Like, Harry, please, please, don't go looking for him. Your parents wouldn't want you to. I'd never know what they wanted because I've never spoken to them. Don't talk to me about what my parents. Harry's just building up reasons and emotion for revenge. Ron, oh, it's the holidays. Let's go down and talk to Hagrid. That'll be fun. That'll take your mind off it. Hermione, no, Harry's not supposed to leave the castle. Harry, yeah, let's go down. He seems to know a lot about what happened to my parents. Hermione's like, bad idea, Ron. Or we could play chess. So they go down. And Harry's ready to just rip into Hagrid. Okay? And what happens instead?
So sad.
Hagrid's crying. And he shows them the letter. Page bottom of 217. Hagrid finds out he's not in trouble for what happened with Buckbeak, but Buckbeak's in trouble. So, to Lucius Malfoy, this matter will therefore be taken to the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures. Hearing that will take place, etc. And so they talk, tea and such. And what do we see? Page 20. Hagrid's just completely demolished. He says, I'm not a good guy, he likes my classes, Buckbeak's going to lose his head, etc. And then he mentions, it's like being back in Azkaban. Is it awful in there, Hagrid? You've no idea. Never been anywhere like it. Thought I was going mad. Kept going over horrible stuff in my mind. The day I got the day me dad died. The day I had to let Norbert go. Like, really? The day his father died is like letting the stupid dragon? Okay? You can't really remember who you are after a while. And you can see the I used to hope I'd just die in my sleep. When they let me out, it was like being born again. Everything came flooding back. It's the best feeling, Hermione, but you were innocent. Think that matters to them? They don't care. Long as they've got a couple of hundred humans just stuck there with them, get all that happiness out of them. Okay? So what happens at the end of that? The trip to Hagrid's fun had nevertheless had the effect Ron and Hermione had hoped. Though Harry had by no means forgotten about Black, he couldn't brood constantly on revenge if he wanted to help Hagrid with his case against the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures. Why not? Why couldn't he brood revenge if he wanted to help Hagrid? Okay.
So it's just making him think about something else other than himself.
What is wanting to Hagrid a sign of? Or what does it show?
Compassion.
Compassion. I tried to write compassion and love together, which would give you. So we'll put compassion. Or love. What's revenge? It's the opposite of love. It's the absence of love and compassion. He couldn't concentrate on this and feel this at the same time. Notice what happens. This wins in Harry. Not this. This takes a back seat. This dies, as it were. So that he starts to think Hagrid's problems. He goes outside himself and empathizes with Hagrid. Okay? He doesn't remember his own pain. So what do we see? Christmas comes. Harry gets another sweater from Mrs. Weasley. Okay? And he gets some other things, including a firebolt. I can't believe it. No card, nothing there. And Hermione will be all Hermione-ish. And tell McGonagall, who's like, the extrapolation of Hermione-ishness. She's the uber Hermione, as it were. Okay? Crookshanks tries to go after, what's his name? Scabbers. Okay? They go down for dinner. There's 12 people at the table. Trelawney shows up and says, page 220 to 228, oh, I dare not. If I do, there'll be 13. A most unlucky number. Well, she places all this trust in numbers and everything. And McGonagall, we'll risk it, Sybil. Sit down. In other words, she pays her no attention. Okay? We're going to skip a bunch again. McGonagall goes and takes the firebolt. And we get the Patronus. Oliver Wood says he'll talk to McGonagall. She'll see reason. And so Harry goes off to Patronus lessons. Page 236. Lupin, actually 237. Lupin says, okay, the spell I'm going to try to teach you, is well advanced, well beyond ordinary wizarding levels. When do you do your owls? Fifth year. Okay? It's called the Patronus charm. How far advanced is this charm? Well, we're told many fully qualified witches and wizards are not able to charm. Okay? Lupin says, oh, here's how it works. It conjures up a Patronus, a kind of anti-Dementor. So, or a Dementor, if you want. Okay. The Patronus. Harry had a sudden, kind of anti-Dementor, a guardian that acts as a shield between you and the Dementor. A guardian, a shield, a protector, okay? A deliverer. Let's even use some highly charged language. A savior. Harry has a sudden vision of himself crouching behind a Hagrid-sized figure holding a big club. That would be a good guardian. The Patronus is a kind of positive force, a projection of the very things that the Dementor feeds upon. Hope, happiness, the desire to... But it can't feel despair. Well, what's it look like? It's unique to the wizard who conjures it. How do you conjure it? With an incantation, which will work only if you're concentrating with all your might on a single, very happy memory and pixie dust. I really wish she'd done this differently here, because it's Disney-esque. Have your happy thought and your pixie dust, and you can fly like Tinkerbell. So, what does Harry think about? Leaving the Dursleys? That was a good thought. Flying on a broomstick? That's good. Okay, so he says, I got it. So here it is. Expecto Patronum. Expecto Patronum. Latin. What does that mean? What word do we get from that? Expect. Okay? But it means more than that. Because you have to break the word up. It means. The O is just an ending that indicates I. That is, I'm doing this. So this is I, X, out of, or from, pec. Pecs, chest. Out of the heart, out of the chest. Like when you take an expectorant because you're lungs are stuffed up with crud from bronchitis and stuff, okay? You're propelling that out, right? So where's the Patronus come from? Inside. It comes from inside. It doesn't come from somewhere out there, all right? Which is why the Patronus is unique to each person who conjures it, okay? So, I use our word for this. If you expect something to happen, that means you seek for it. You want for it to happen. Okay? So I expect, I seek, I need a what? A protector, a shield, a guardian, a deliverer, a savior. All of these things. Okay? So, Harry does it in a little whispery. Okay, ready to try it on Dementor? Harry's like, okay. He does mother again. So what happens? The Dementor comes. Not Harry, please, I'll do anything. You all right? Harry's like, no. Lupin gives him a chocolate frog. Harry, it's getting worse. I could hear her louder that time, and him. If you don't want to continue. No, Harry says, I have to. Okay. You need a better memory, Harry. House championship. That was pretty good. Ready? Ready. Lily, take Harry and go. It's him. Go. Run. I'll hold him off. The sounds of someone stumbling from a room. A door bursting open. A cackle of high-pitched laughter. What's he just done? He's gone even farther back in his memory. I heard my dad. That's the first time I've ever heard him. Okay. Imagine never heard a parent's voice. And now you hear the parent's voice. Do you want to shut it off? Doesn't mean you can program it to say what you want it to say. You heard James? Did you know my dad? Yeah, I did. No, Harry says, I want one more time. The screaming inside his head starts again, but now it's like from bad radio, and a shadow comes, and Harry stops it. And Harry asks, 242, well, if you then you must have known Sirius Black as well. What gives you that idea? They were friends. Yeah, I knew him, or I thought I did. And Harry leaves, 243 right in the middle, and what happens? He's thinking, they're dead. They're dead. And listening to echoes won't bring them back. Okay? You'd better get a grip on yourself if you want that Quidditch cup. Listening to echoes won't bring them back. He wants to bring them back. When he looked in the mirror, that's what he wants. He wants to bring them back. He wants to be with them. Okay? So Harry goes and asks McGonagall if he can have it back, and she says, no, you can't have it back. 246, he goes off for another lesson with Lupin. And Lupin says, you're expecting too much. For a 13-year-old wizard, even an indistinct is a huge achievement. You're not passing out anymore. Harry, well, I thought the Patronus would charge them down or something. Make them disappear. The true Patronus does, Lupin says. Okay? Harry talks about Bart, and then he asks, what's under a Dementor's hood? Lupin, well, no one really knows, because those who would know can't talk. They kill? Oh, no, Lupin says. Much worse than that. You can exist without your soul, you know, as long as your brain and heart are still working. But you'll have no sense of self anymore. No chance of recovery. Just be an empty shell. Your soul will be gone forever. He deserves it. You think so? Do you really think anyone deserves that? Harry, yes, for some. I mean, this is like an unforgivable curse. Okay? Harry's suggesting Sirius Black deserves to have his soul sucked out. Okay? So we go on. We're going to skip a bunch again. Harry goes up to his room. There's blood on the floor. They're looking for Scabbers. Scabbers is gone, and there's a bunch of cat hair. Then, let's see, next chapter, Gryffindor versus Ravenclaw. Malfoy and Crabbe and Goyle put on their little joke. Harry shoots a Patronus at him. They get in trouble. Harry wakes up because Ron is screaming. Ron saw Sirius Black standing over him, holding a knife. And then we get chapter 14, Snape's Grudge. They go up and meet with Hagrid, page 274. Hagrid wants to meet with them because Harry and Ron are kind of ignoring Hermione. And says she's been coming down and helping me a lot since Christmas with Hagrid's appeal. And Ron says, now you're not talking to her because her cat, Ron, ate Scabbers. Because her cat acted like all cats do. Cats eat rats. Period. Okay? He says, I would have expected you guys to behave differently being friends. Really upset she was when Black nearly stabbed you, Ron. She's got her heart in the right place, Hermione has, and you two not talking to her. Well, if she'd just get rid of that cat, I'd speak to her again, Ron says. But she still sticks up for it. It's a maniac. And she won't hear a word against it. My absolute most favorite line in the entire series. Oh, well, people can be a bit stupid about their pets, Hagrid said wisely. Behind him, Buckbeak spat a few ferret bones upon Hagrid's pillow. Buckbeak's on the bed, first of all, and it's spitting bones onto his pillow. Okay? So they keep talking. Harry goes off to sneak off to Hogsmeade. Sees Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle talk to Ron. They don't see Harry because he's under the invisibility cloak. Until he throws snow at him. Or mud. And the invisibility cloak comes off of his head. So they see that. Harry runs back. He gets caught by Snape. Snape tells him to empty his pockets. And he pulls out the Marauders Map, page 286. Professor Severus Snape, master of the school, commands you to yield the information you conceal. Top of 287. Mr. Mooney presents his compliments to Professor Snape and begs him to keep his abnormally large nose out of other people's business. Now, what does this tell us about the Marauders Map? It knows Snape. What else?
It programmed to respond to Snape.
Is it programmed? It has a mind of its own. They put a little bit of themselves, so to speak, into it. Snape freezes. Harry's thinking, oh no. Mr. Prongs says, agrees with Mr. Mooney and would like to add that Professor Snape is an ugly git. Mr. Padfoot would like to register his astonishment that an idiot like that ever became a professor. And Mr. Wormtail bids Professor Snape good day and advises him to wash his hair the slime ball. Lupin! Snape calls. And Lupin appears. And Lupin says, it looks to me like, this is a piece of charmed stuff. And he takes it from Snape and Harry. But then he tells Harry, page 289, I know it's a map. I don't want to know how it fell into your possession. I am, however, astounded you didn't hand it in, particularly after what happened last time a student left information about the castle lying around. When Neville left the password for Tuna Major, why did Snape think I got it from the manufacturers? Because these map makers would have wanted to lure you out of school. They'd think it extremely entertaining. Okay? We've met, says Lupin. But then he says, don't expect me to cover up for you again, Harry. I cannot make you take Sirius Black seriously, but I would have thought that what you've heard when the Dementors draw near you would have had more of an effect. Your parents gave their lives to keep you alive. And here you go and risk all that for a bag of magic tricks? He's not saying how little do you value your own life. He's saying how little do you value your parents' sacrifice. Oh, that makes Harry feel like, a pile of. So we have the Quidditch final. Hermione shows them the note from Hagrid saying Buckbeak's about to get killed. Harry goes up to Trelawney's class. Okay. Hermione's had enough. She gets up and leaves. 299. I think this is the first time we're told about the Easter holidays. Just a little thing. Notice it's not spring break. It's Easter holidays. Okay? And they have the match. McGonagall gives him back he's gotten back the firebolt and everything. And I'm going to skip a bunch here. Harry captures the snitch. They win the cup and go to Professor Trelawney's prediction. Through this. If we end up getting way behind, I know I said we'd start Goblet today. If we actually have to, I'm hoping we don't. But I do have all of Deathly Hallows online. So if we have to, we can skip some of Deathly Hallows at the end. We have Trelawney's prediction. Harry goes up for the test. He sees Fudge come. And page 324, he's there for his personal exam with Trelawney. He finishes and he hears, "It will happen tonight." The Dark Lord lies alone and friendless, abandoned by his followers. His servant has been chained these 12 years. Tonight, before midnight, the servant will break free and save his master. The Dark Lord will rise again, with the servant's aid, greater and more terrible than ever he was. Tonight, before midnight, the servant will sadly rejoin his master. Okay? Harry's like, you just made it. And she's like, yeah, look, I'm going to make that kind of prediction. Okay? So, Harry, Ron, and Hermione go off to see Hagrid. They're under the invisibility cloak. And what do they discover in Hagrid's hut? Scabbers. P9. I don't know. Being a rat, living in a hut with a great big hippogriff, you think that's really all that smart? So they have to leave. And as they're walking towards the castle, they hear the of the axe as it hits the wood. And then we get cat, rat, and dog. Scabbers jumps out of Ron's pocket. Ron runs after it. The big black dog does show up, so now they know. Harry's not just been imagining that, because he's seen the dog and the cat before. Hermione says we've got to go get help. Harry says no, we have to go now. And they find their way into the Whomping Willow. They follow the passage. And Hermione says, page 337, we're in the Shrieking Shack. Now, what's the Shrieking Shack?
Haunted.
It's a haunted dwelling, building, okay? Hogsmeade is supposed to be one of the only villages left in all of England. And the Shrieking Shack is supposed to be the most haunted building in Hogsmeade. So they go in, and what do they meet? Sirius Black. Takes their wands. Okay? And Ron says, if you want to kill Harry, you'll have to kill us too. You'll damage that leg even more. If he's going to kill them, what does he care about Ron's leg? That should be the logic that Hermione are using. But they don't. Okay? They don't realize Black is not there to kill Harry. It hasn't even entered their mind yet. Page 340, and we'll stop with this. Hermione's like, Harry, shut up. Because Harry's like, why? Why should he care about Ron's leg? He killed my mom and dad. He'd forgotten about magic. He'd forgotten he was short and skinny and 13, whereas Black was a tall, full-grown man. What Harry wanted to do was to hurt Black. And what does he do? He lunges towards Sirius. Okay? They get the wands from him, and Harry's standing there pointing it at him. Gonna kill me, Harry? What did he say earlier? What's Sirius Black deserve? Dementor's kiss. Gonna kill me, Harry? You killed my parents. Prepare to die. Black stares. I don't deny it, but if you knew the whole story. In other words, at least give me an opportunity to tell you the whole story. And that's where we'll stop. If I